Call to order 303. And Jane, who do we have registered for public comment?
Mary Sell.
Okay, I saw her on there. Mary, you got 2 minutes, so go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, great. This is Mary Sell, Chair of Jefferson County Water Advisory Committee. I'm joined by Colin Stein, the Secretary, and Jim Cummings. We are putting forward on public comment today a proposed groundwater quality assessment of Jefferson County, prepared by the United States Geological Service. We're here today to introduce it and to come back in June, hopefully, on the agenda. We respectfully request to get on the agenda when you can have us.
Okay.
We've been before the Jefferson County Commission, so Commissioner Nolan has seen us and suggested we are out with this proposal in the community, talking to Region Knoxville and Jefferson County Development Authority. It's a county-wide study on water quality, and I'll turn it over to Colin and Jim Cummings, but we think this might work well into your upcoming strategic plan and outreach to community and provide a baseline of water quality for site developers and for all types of businesses, diverse businesses. So Colin and Jim, would you like to make a comment? Colin? He might be on mute.
I'll unmute him.
Jim?
All right, I don't hear. I was expecting Colin to say something. Can you hear me all right?
Yep, go ahead.
Good. Again, as Mary was saying, we just want to introduce you to this proposed study of the groundwater of Jefferson County.
But I want to thank both of them for their leadership on helping us get this before the County Commission and for getting the proposal. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. It's Colin and Jim.
All right, Mary. Is Colin there?
I am. I was on mute, and then I unmuted myself, and Jane muted me, and then I unmuted again. So
Sorry.
that's all right. So I also want to point out that it's actually very important for all of the water utilities in Shepherdstown, Charlestown, Harpers Ferry, JUI, to get a basic understanding of not only the water quality, but also the water quantity. The last survey that was done by USGS was in 1992, and now the county's changed significantly since then. And we really don't have a good idea of what's in our groundwater or where problems are or where they might be. This survey will be a systematic one, so it'll cover the entire county. I think it's the Water Advisory Committee has unanimously supported it, and the County Commission, when Mary took it to them, also unanimously supported it. What we're looking for is funding, and we'll talk more about that in June.
Okay.
Jim?
Will you guys be providing us with something to review before the June meeting?
Yes, we have a PowerPoint. We thought we would send it to you for today's meeting, but since we've only got 2 minutes, doing a 10-slide PowerPoint doesn't fit.
If we can get it between now and then, we can review it before you come to the June meeting. So
I have
guys.
it.
Yeah. Oh.
Great. All right, so we're good. Jane, anybody else? Looks like we had Robert Denton I saw on the list.
No, I don't believe so.
He's part of the Water Advisory Committee.
Okay.
Jim might want to say a few words.
Unmute. No, I don't want to hold you all long. We only have the 2 minutes, or well past that. But showing support on the county level will greatly help us get further federal and state funding. So that's an important consideration as well.
Okay, thanks, folks. And Jane, I see a tab. Is that anybody that you knew of?
That's Anastasia. She was on our executive committee meeting the other day. I don't know if
Okay.
she wants to say something or.
Anastasia there? Anastasia, are you there?
She's muted and no video, so we're gonna assume that she says, do you want to say something, Anastasia? I can't unmute her.
Okay. All right, so any other public comment you can see there, Jane?
No.
All right, we'll move on to minutes from our 21st, 24th, and 30th April meetings. Folks get a chance to review those hopefully and entertain a motion anytime somebody's ready on those.
I'll move to approve the minutes from the April 21st and April 24th and April 30th meetings. This is Patsy.
Sean, I'll second that.
Okay, we got Sean there. Any discussion on?
I couldn't find him. I couldn't find him, so I don't know what happened.
All right. Any other discussion there? Krista, you could abstain, I guess, this go around if you want, and review them later, and we can adjust if you find something. All right, any other comments? All in favor of passing?
Only the, aye.
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 I waited long enough to, hopefully that sounds like we got the majority, so we'll approve those. Moving on to, let's see, do we see Mr. Chris? I'm still not seeing him. Are you, Jane?
Yes, he's here.
Oh, there he is. There, I see now. I don't see his video, but I see his name.
Let me see if I can do this.
There he is. Chris, we're up to your treasurer's report, so
Cool.
take it away.
Great. Treasurer's report, taking a look at, if you would, the profit and loss, comparing 2020 to 2019. If you take a look at account 6265, professional services, 23,390 this year. Last year, nothing. Those services are related to our several projects that we're working on. We've already talked about those in detail. I don't think we need to go through them again, to be honest with you. Other things that jump out a little bit, and also legal services, of course. If you take a look at our legal services, which I talk about, it seems like every meeting that we have, we keep thinking that we're going to finally be done paying legal services, but I guess that we will never. And, you know, my experience living with a lawyer for the last 45 years, yeah, that's just the way that is. Not anything else that jumps out weird or unusual. You know, if you look at these income statements and the P&L and the balance sheet, what you see is what we've talked about for the last several months. We're bleeding a little bit, but we expect that. And there's nothing out of the ordinary from anything that I've seen for the last 6 or 7 months. If you have any specific questions, I'll be glad to either answer them now or get you answers this afternoon or tomorrow. But that's the report as of right now.
Great, thanks. Any questions for Chris?
I have one question. Chris, forgive me if I'm asking something that other people already know. Coming up into the future to the end of the fiscal year, are there any stress points?
I think that the only stress point that I can foresee, and I think we all probably thought about this, would be if because of down revenue at the county level, if the board isn't able, if the county commissioners aren't able to fund us as they have in the past, that would be something for us to deal with. Now, the good news is we have sufficient funds in the sweeps accounts to exist probably for several years, even if we don't, as we have planned, find new funding. So it's concerning. It can happen. Will it? Only time will tell. So that would be the one pinch point that I see looking down the road.
Great. Any other questions for Chris? All right, thank you, sir. At this point, if we can adjust the agenda a little bit, item 7A, we've got a guest in the room here, our virtual room. So John Deskins is volunteered to take on a topic a bunch of us know some about, and he knows a whole lot more about. So welcome him to the forum. And John, you can introduce yourself or tear right in, whichever you choose.
Okay. Again, happy to be here. For those of you who don't know me, I'm John Deskins. I'm an economics professor, director of the Bureau of Business and Economic Research, and assistant dean for outreach and engagement in the WVU College of Business. Really happy to be here with you folks. I always enjoy anytime I go over to the Eastern Panhandle to visit. Unfortunately, I'm just visiting virtually today and not in person, but oh well. I just will note that I'm not actually homeless. I look homeless because I took a vow not to shave until this crisis was over with. And at that time, I thought it was going to be 2 or 3 weeks. I didn't realize it was going to be a lot longer. So, but I'll give you my perspective on pilot agreements and just, local economic development incentives in general. I'm not speaking to any specific proposal. I don't have a specific proposal in front of me. I'm just giving you my thoughts on these local economic development incentives from a big picture perspective. And I will say I am not the world's foremost expert on this. I know a little bit about them. I've had some experience, of course, in this area, but I'm not the world's foremost expert. I will say I put together a brief PowerPoint presentation. It's about 8 or 10 slides with my through my thoughts. Okay. And let me just say, when I do share my screen, I won't be getting, I can only see 1 or 2 people under screen sharing. So somebody yell out or something if I freeze up or if something doesn't make sense, because I won't get full perspective. All right. Everybody see my screen?
Yep, we're good, John.
Yep.
All right. Again, just my thoughts on pilot agreements in general. Of course, the positives are obvious. I mean, the reason someone would argue for a pilot agreement, the whole point is they can encourage economic development in a competitive environment where multiple jurisdictions are competing for a big business, for an employer, for jobs. Of course, it's not too hard to recognize the fact that all else equal, a business is going to locate in our jurisdiction if we offered a lower tax bill altogether compared to other jurisdictions, all else equal. In Jefferson County, this notion of competing for businesses is, I think, very relevant for Jefferson County because it's an area that has lots of positive momentum, a lot of benefits. It's moving in the right direction. It's been one of the standout counties in West Virginia, of course. So it has a real potential to draw in some good business activity on the one hand, but at the same time, certainly the area is in a very competitive environment. You know that better than I do, with the fact that we have Maryland and Virginia right next door, also competing for these jobs very vigorously. So it's a very relevant area for discussion. Of course, pilot agreements, you know, kind of oddly in some ways, they can increase tax revenue if our baseline is a situation in which the business does not locate here. If the pilot agreement is what tips the scale and gets the business here to locate, then we'll end up with more tax revenue in that environment. Of course, there are negatives. Every policy has negatives, pros and cons, so that's why it's so interesting. On the other hand, the pilot agreement can, of course, reduce property tax revenues if our baseline is, oh, the business is going to locate here anyway, whether we give it an incentive or not. And so a pilot agreement is going to leave us with less revenue if our basis of comparison is the business comes here anyway, the business exists here anyway, and pays, you know, the normal property tax bill. So, you know, whether revenues are higher or lower is completely dependent on your basis of comparison, completely dependent upon your notion of whether the business will come and join us in West Virginia or not. Pilot agreements also can be perceived as unfair to other businesses that do not receive a similar break. And they can lack transparency, the way in which they are negotiated individually. And it's not always completely clear to the public, you know, what the deal is, what's going on. It's not like your personal income tax bill that's laid out in a very, actually personal income taxes can be, it might not be a great example. They can be fuzzy too with all the exemptions, deductions, and credits. But anyway, they're negotiated on an individual basis and can be less transparent as a result. But of course, the whole point, all this discussion boils down to, will the business actually locate here without an incentive, or are we just giving away an incentive? Are we just giving this away to a business that's going to come here no matter what? That's the question. You know, theoretically, there's a case to make. Of course, taxes are important. Taxes will affect business location decisions, but ultimately it becomes an empirical question, like so much in economics. So this is the thing, to do a really good study in economics, just imagine the ideal scenario to really do policy analysis. The ideal scenario would be we have one policy that is identical across all states, and we would randomly assign, you know, okay, half the states are going to pursue this policy, the other half of the states aren't going to pursue this policy, and we're just randomly distributing the policy. We're not saying the big states do it and the small states don't, or something like that. If we were to randomly assign a uniform policy, we could get a really good idea of whether that policy achieves its goals or not. But in this case, this is kind of the opposite situation. We have pilot agreements and various other local tax incentives that vary widely in the way they're structured, in the way that they are, you know, offered to businesses. And it's really hard to make a careful, confident, thorough analysis of whether these are effective or not, because they're so varied. You in some sense, you're comparing apples and oranges when we offer a pilot agreement that looks like that, and over here in another jurisdiction, there's a pilot agreement that looks like something else. It's really hard to make a careful comparison. And I think with this paradigm of not being able to really definitively put our finger on what is the effect of local incentives, there's enough ambiguity out there that some groups can find some evidence over here that they can use to claim that piloted agreements are effective, but there's other evidence over here on the other side that we can use to claim that they're ineffective. It's that murky. It's not so crystal clear. And again, a lot of economic problems are like that. Very seldom do we get that ideal scenario that I described a second ago. My personal take on the research, again, I'm not the foremost expert in the world on this. My personal take is that overall, by and large, you know, all else equal, that such agreements do make an important difference in attracting businesses. That's not going to say that they're going to work in every single case. Of course, many specific scenarios, many specific instances, you know, you're going to see an agreement that doesn't have an effect. But I think overall, the literature indicates that they are important, they are an important determinant of business location decisions. Said, you know, there's a lot of other things that businesses are looking at. Of course, businesses, we don't have an all else equal type scenario in the real world. Businesses aren't just looking at tax policy. They're also looking at things like infrastructure, quality of life, education, so on and so forth, that all matter. And taxes aren't number one on the list in terms of what businesses look like. So it's a really complicated you know, question of how to design our overall economic system or public policy system to be most attractive to businesses. But I think pilot agreements are important among other factors. To switch gears a little bit, I think we also have some discussion here of the business machinery and equipment taxes. And that's something that I've commented on quite a bit as well. You know, there's been a lot of discussion in the West Virginia legislature for at least a couple of sessions, if not more, on eliminating the business machinery and equipment taxes. And I've commented several times that just to get to the point that I don't think that's a good way of doing taxes. The ideal, if we think back to optimal tax policy, just from the very most basic foundation, if you want to design a good tax system, you want to tax a base that's not very mobile. If we have something that can easily be moved outside of a jurisdiction to a lower tax jurisdiction in response to tax policy, then in that case, if we tax that base, if we tax that item heavily, we're going to see a lot of movement. We're going to see a lot of distortions in some sense, a lot of behavioral response that can create inefficiencies in our economic system that results from tax policy. And that's what we don't want to happen. We want to tax bases that are not mobile, bases that are less mobile, not bases that are more mobile. So if you're ever thinking about it, like the business machinery and equipment tax, inventory tax, that's an example of a base that's pretty mobile. It'd be pretty easy for a business located in Jefferson County to move its machinery and equipment or inventory over to Virginia over the long term in response to a tax on a base that's that mobile. So that's one more point, although that's not the key theme here. To get back to my conclusion, let me give you my culminating thought, and then I'll be happy to take questions. But before I give you my final thought here, I want to go on just a little brief tangent. I want to talk about something that might seem, or that will seem irrelevant at first, but if you'll bear with me for just 1 minute, you'll see how this relates. In economics, we have this story that we use called the prisoner's dilemma. I'm not going to go into the full background of where we get the term prisoner's dilemma. If you want a good read, just Google that, read about it, and it's a very interesting little way of illustrating a social phenomenon. But bottom line is, a prisoner's dilemma, it's a situation in which you have different people interacting strategically. And in a prisoner's dilemma, everyone does what is in their own self-interest. Each player does what action, you know, makes them as well off as possible. But the result of that is a suboptimal outcome for society overall. Everyone's doing what they should be doing, but we get a suboptimal outcome. The classic example of a prisoner's dilemma is the nuclear arms race. The idea is that we don't want a world with nuclear weapons. That's bad. But when the U.S. and the Soviet Union were going at it with each other, you know, from the U.S.'s perspective, if we get nuclear weapons, we're going to have a huge leg up on the Soviet Union if they don't have nuclear weapons. The flip side, if they have nuclear weapons, we definitely want to have nuclear weapons, or else we're going to be at a major disadvantage. The Soviet Union is looking at the exact same calculation. They see that it makes sense for them to have nuclear weapons. And the result is both people have nuclear weapons. Both people did what was rational, but the whole world would be better off without nuclear weapons. That's not crazy. That's relevant here. This notion of competing with other jurisdictions with incentives like this, it can be thought of as a prisoner's dilemma game. We'd probably all be better off if we had a situation where everybody has simple, broad-based, low-rate taxes, and we're not individually competing with other jurisdictions through through local tax incentives, through pilot agreements, through whatever. We'd probably be better off without that activity and just let the business locate where it needs to locate based on a variety of economic principles. But if that were the situation, if every jurisdiction just followed this normal, simple, classic tax policy, we would have an incentive to offer, I mean, it would be in our best interest to offer a development incentive in our jurisdiction, and we could have a booming economy because we could have a leg up on all these other competing jurisdictions. So everybody has this same calculus. Every jurisdiction is offering these incentives, and we all find ourselves in this environment that we really not want to be in ideally, but we're in this environment where we are all competing against each other. We're all kind of providing richer and richer and more generous and more generous incentives, because if we don't do it, we're going to be left behind. It's the situation they're in. I don't think these incentives are a first best type of world. I think we'd be better off with classic, simple tax policy systems, but everybody has an incentive to compete, and if we don't compete, there's a good chance we'll be left behind in the dust. So it is a classic prisoner's dilemma that we can't really easily overcome. So those are my thoughts. I'm happy to take any questions that you have. That was pretty brief, but again, I'm not speaking to a specific proposal or any specific details there.
Thanks, John. Who's got questions for John? I'm sure there are points that people want to ask, so go ahead.
John, this is Greg Mason. Thank you for joining us today, and very nice presentation. My question is, how do you feel about extending pilot agreements? Because that was one of the things that came before the board the other month. So we had a company that I believe wants to expand, and we talked about extending a pilot agreement, and I just wonder what your thoughts are on that. I agree with you. I think and you said it's hard to measure. It can't be measured. So I don't know how we do that for the future and how we set precedent or the next precedent with the next company. But I think we need them to be competitive. So that's my opinion of that. But I wanted your opinion on how you feel about extending them with companies that want to expand or do something.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it from that angle. Normally the discussion is about kind of what I said about attracting businesses in the first place, not about extending the agreements. And I hadn't given that any thought, but it's still essentially the same calculation. I mean, is this business going to really leave if we don't offer the pilot agreement? Or is this just a bluff, or is this just gamesmanship? I would think that once we have the business here, it would probably be less likely to leave than in the first situation where it's kind of footloose and it can go wherever because it has no facility in place yet. So I would think the bar would kind of frankly justify an agreement with an extension versus attracting an initial business that's much more footloose, right? I mean, the point is an existing business is not as footloose as a business that's just thinking about expanding in the first place. Same. I mean, the pilot agreement may still matter. The business may not be bluffing. It may leave without this agreement. It's impossible to say for sure, but I think that would have a higher bar in that case. Does my answer make sense there?
Your answer makes sense to me, and then it goes along with what I think. I don't think they would leave, and I think we should weigh that out with each individual company or whoever brings us to the table in the future. What do we stand to lose? How many jobs could we possibly lose? If we can lose, if the potential is there to lose 10, I think we might weigh that differently than if the potential was there to lose 200.
Absolutely.
Good answer.
Completely agree with that.
Other questions for John?
Mr. Gatz,
Hi. Yeah, I just had a couple questions there. Thank you for the presentation and from that perspective. I've done some reading about this too, not so much about pilots, but about just local incentives. And it does seem like there's a divide. There's a bunch of academics who say that they really are not worth the effort, that businesses will come whether you give them that incentive or not. And then there's others, like you said, that think that we're kind of in the position where we'll get in trouble. We won't succeed if we don't join the fight and offer things. but it is definitely, as I understand it, it's a pretty big debate, and it's not a clear-cut answer. But I also wanted to talk to you about if we were to continue giving incentives, perhaps through pilot type arrangements, what would you suggest we think about in terms of, is it possible to require that business to do something in addition to locating here? And how we would sort of think about what those requirements might be, such as numbers of jobs of people in this county versus people coming from a different county for the jobs, or an improvements to a park or something. Is that often part of the conversation, the negotiation that happens in this context?
To your first point there, I mean, yes, I couldn't agree more. You definitely see people on both camps, and it's all because these pilot agreements are so hard to study because there's such a extreme lack of uniform. To your main point for economic development incentives, I'm sorry, was that a question? Well, I'll go ahead. Thought I heard somebody chime in there. But Mr. Gatz, to your point there, the pilot agreement is for the purposes of economic development, and I think they can be contingent on the creation of a certain number of jobs or on some other economic benefit that is associated with the business located in the region. I'm not absolutely for sure how common that is. I mean, again, I haven't written a report on pilot agreements or anything like that, but I think that definitely is included in some pilot agreements, some conditions, some criteria. You have to create this many jobs, but I'm not for sure if that's 20% of overall agreements or half or what fraction it is. But I don't think it's unheard of. I can say that much.
Can I do a follow-up? Just one, Neil.
Sure.
So yeah, recently, John, we were talking to somebody from another state recently, and he talked about the way they do incentives, and he said, of course, there's a lot of back and forth like that, and there are metrics set in place for the agreement, like the numbers of jobs and numbers of other things that happen, and then there's oversight to make sure that that really gets put into place. That's in a different state. I'm curious, does that happen typically in this state? Like there are agreements, and then there's an audit every year to make sure things were done.
Oh boy, I mean, I don't work with anything like that. I mean, the research that we do is not institutional like that. I mean, there certainly needs to be oversight and continuous monitoring to make sure. But I just can say I haven't worked on any projects, or I know a lot of people in the West Virginia government, and I don't collaborate with anybody on reports like that, and I don't know of any, but I hope they're there because we need to make sure that these agreements and these incentives are being followed through as intended. But I don't have any evidence for or against that notion.
All right, thank you.
Other
This
questions?
is Jim Bunsenmeyer. I believe with the West Virginia Tax Department, when someone submits an annual request for a tax credit based on their investment, their company equipment investment, there is a requirement to prove that they have created the jobs to qualify for a particular tax credit. So at least in one situation, there are checks and balances.
Thanks,
That's
Jim.
good. That's good evidence that we definitely need.
Dar, did you have something? I thought I saw your hand there.
Yeah, I do. I want to play the prisoner's dilemma. Are there any highly mobile businesses in Virginia or Maryland, types of businesses that might be attracted to our area with a pilot program? Types of businesses.
Well, that's what I said at the beginning. I mean, you're in a very competitive environment. I mean, this might be totally irrelevant if we're out in the middle of North Dakota where there's not much that we could potentially lure in because we're so remote. But I mean, you're in one of the, right on the fringe of one of the biggest metropolitan areas in the country. So you have all kinds of potential to draw in businesses with the size and stability and strength of that huge Washington metro. So I can't name any businesses right off the top of my head that you could potentially lure in, but I mean, you're in a right place for that.
Thank you.
I was on a call earlier today where the discussion was attracting Department of Defense related industries or contractors out from the DC Metro Beltway to get out of, for the lack of a better word, call it the blast zone. And you've got plenty of flat land, and there is a concern with folks related to the Department of Defense that there is a serious situation or serious dilemma with a high concentration of closely related businesses or agencies within a small geographic area.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments for John?
Let me just say, I think Mr. Stein is having the best meeting because he's outside enjoying his rocking chair while everybody else is inside. I mean, I want to be with you, Mr. Stein.
John, one of the beauties of having you here, one, we learned something, but two, as evidenced by some of the question and particularly your answer, we understand by you being here that it's an unbiased view that you're offering. You're just talking about things from an economic standpoint because you don't really have the specific groups or businesses or interests to speak to. So I value that you're coming at this from just what drives economics. And so I appreciate the presentation and taking time to meet with us. Hopefully we get you a reprieve here in a few weeks and you're able to clean up and get back to the normal, but we certainly appreciate getting the expertise here that you bring. So any other final questions for John?
If anybody does, I don't see any hands going up or anything. If anybody does think of a question, feel free to call or email anytime. Always happy to talk to you and hope to come out and visit the Eastern Panhandle in person here soon if we can ever get back to normal.
Great. We always enjoy having you out here. Thanks, John.
Great. Have a good day.
Thanks, John.
All right, Jane, back on your screen, I guess, right?
Neil?
Yep.
We didn't accept the treasurer's report before you move on.
All right, so looking for a motion on that.
I so move.
Sean, and anybody else second?
Seconded.
Sounded like Greg there. All right, any discussion there? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We'll assume that's enough ayes to make it a yes, so we're there. All right, moving on. Committee reports. Executive, I don't really have anything to say there other than what we'll talk about a little later in executive session regarding our executive director search. Bob, that puts you up next.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, we're going to have an ag meeting finally tomorrow at 4 p.m. Right, Jane? Yep. And we're going to be going through a couple of things. We're going to be talking about possible projects that we want to try to get surfaced up through JCDA that we think have value. We've got about 6 or 7 to talk about. And we're also going to talk a little bit about possibly bringing on some new blood on the Ag Committee on a non-voting basis. And we won't do that until we get it back to the Executive Committee for consideration.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it right now.
Great. All right, so Patsy, Business Development and Marketing.
Okay, well, we met on April 22nd, and the major discussion centered around ways to increase revenue for the Development Authority so we don't have to be dependent on the County Commission. Jim Linsenmeyer joined us along with Bill Clark from Region 9. There were a couple of encouraging ideas floating around out there, but the best one was to consult maybe site selectors to determine what kind of what people are looking for, and what can the JCDA, what kind of business could the JCDA possibly maybe invest in, to see what we could do to raise revenue to become more self-sustaining and independent. So there was also the idea of funding a feasibility study, and Bill Clark seemed to think there's a lot of money out there to be able to maybe do some investing. And so we look forward to more information forthcoming, and hopefully we'll have more to report at the next meeting.
Great, thanks. Government and Legislative Affairs, James.
Okay, yeah, so we met last Thursday evening and primarily talked about two things that are on our agenda for a little bit later. I could cover them now, or I could cover them later. Which do you want?
Yeah, we got them down there coming up soon, so we'll hop at them soon here.
Okay.
Great, thanks. Michelle, strategic plan.
Good afternoon. Capacity Partners has finished their stakeholder interviews. They've done 20, maybe even a couple more phone interviews with folks, and I hear they learned a lot and are doing some good thinking around what they learned. The next step is they are preparing drafts of a broader survey that will go out to the community and our community groups. We will be reviewing their findings from the stakeholder interviews and a draft of this broader survey on June 2nd at 3 o'clock when our next meeting is. And we'll be talking about at that meeting too, how we'll be distributing this survey to make sure that we get broad participation.
Great. Thanks. Chris, anything additional from what you did under the Treasurer's report? Jane, did we lose Chris? He's muted.
Hello?
Anything additional for budget?
No, nothing new.
Okay,
Sorry.
great, thanks.
Yep.
In order to try to keep this moving well, how about we slide items 7B, C, and D up now. So James, that'll get to the point you were looking at just a moment ago. So 7B, Tourism Development District, and go ahead, James.
Yeah, just to remind folks, earlier this spring, we as a board sent a letter to the legislature supporting this bill, Tourism Development District bill, which was passed and has now become law. And that law requires the Department of Commerce to issue emergency regulations by July 1st. As the first step in the rulemaking process. Those regulations would then be reviewed by the legislature in the next session. So we had talked about, I reached out to the Department of Commerce in early March before COVID appeared to see if it would be appropriate and helpful for the JCDA or any individuals to share some ideas with them as they were starting to draft the regulation. And they were eager to receive our input. But we haven't done that yet. And we did talk about this at our governmental affairs meeting last week. And seemed like there was interest among the members, and we thought the towns would be interested too. But then earlier this week, I talked to the person at the Department of Commerce, and it turns out that they've been drafting their regulation and they're sort of far along. And while they're eager to have our input, it may be that it's a little bit late in terms of water under the bridge for them. So I would recommend that we continue refining what the JCDA might recommend in terms of the regulation. There's, and if we can do it in the next few weeks, then I would recommend that we think about sending it to them, but definitely be ready to comment on the emergency regulations once it's published. That's when they'll seek formal public input, and then also be able to talk with our senators and delegates to make sure that they understand any recommendations we have, so that they can keep that in mind next session when they review the thing. So that's where we are with the Tourism Development District draft regulations. And I just wanted to, if anybody had any thoughts about that, or if we should have, I'm not asking for any action. It's just updating you what happened.
Hey, James, it's Sean. Got a quick question for you.
Okay.
I apologize for missing the meeting the other night. I had a plumber at the house and I couldn't get away. But as far as the regulations go with the Department of Commerce, in your dealings with them, do you believe that it was a case of they were just appeasing us, saying, yeah, we'll listen, and went ahead anyways? Or do you think it was just a situational obscurity due to everything that was going on and them just going forward?
No, you know what? When I talked with them in March the 3rd or early March, I talked to the guy, a man's name is Jack Reif, who's the general counsel there, and he was really interested. He said, oh, that's interesting. You all might have some thoughts. I'd welcome your input, because he said, I hadn't really thought too much about this yet. We just got behind and didn't send him the things. But so I think he's interested. But they also are under the gun in terms of they have to publish something by July 1st by law. So that's why, I think that's what I would recommend, is that we continue talking about it. It won't be wasteful on energy on our part, because it will be helpful if we want to give formal comments later. It'll be helpful to inform ourselves and inform our senator and delegates, because they are gonna review the regulation in the next session. And I just thought it was, I had two good conversations with Jack Reif about this. He seemed like a person who was interested in hearing what we had to say.
Okay, I was just trying to get your take on it.
Yeah.
So James, you
Can I say
guys
something?
have another meeting planned, and you can maybe bring something back after that.
We could
Can
plan.
I say something?
Christy.
There we go.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that Laurel Zemansky, who's the representative for Swan, the outfit that's proposing to do the Hilltop Hotel, is very interested in participating, working with us on this.
Great, thanks.
Jim, I'd like to ask a question. In the packet we got before the meeting, there was a memo, I guess you'd call it, with listed a bunch of regulations. Were those the ones you were talking about sending?
I don't know that I saw the packet, so I'm not sure what you're talking about, but it could be a document that
Jane, you're nodding. Was that what was
That was, I think you're talking about the document that James prepared for the Government Affairs Committee.
Right.
It was sort of a working document.
Right.
Go
ahead.
That was like a first stab that I put together and shared with the committee last week as a way to start the conversation. And we talked about some of it, but it was a lot to talk about. And then someone from Bolivar, Amanda, shared that with someone from one of the council members from Bolivar, and they have some ideas as well. So there's interest among the municipalities in some aspects of this thing that I think they might now go forward with their, comment on, give their own comments to the state. But
the reason I was asking is there seemed to be some fairly specific comments that your group was making, and thoughtful, specific comments. And I'm just asking the question: would it be helpful to get to the folks in charge of the regulation before they actually promulgate it. We can always come in with public comment later, but to put a bee in their heads,
right?
Start thinking about some of the stuff that was proposed in your working document.
That's what I hope we still can do. I just was trying to say that our time is short, and if we aren't able to pull together something that's fairly high level and fairly quickly, we will have another bite at the apple later. Dara, the main thing that sort of kept us interested in this was when we passed that resolution to support the bill. There were some people on the board who were very concerned about it, and there are also people in the communities that are very concerned about the bill kind of taking a lot of authority away from local governments. So we were looking at the law to find where they might, through the regulation, kind of reduce that concern by making sure that there is a role for local governments in certain places in the process. That's kind of where we started. But
sounds to me like, at the very least, if any of the municipalities do author something, we want that in hand before we decide if we're going to take any action on our more global view. We'd want to know that we're not in misalignment with any of the municipalities. Christy, I see your hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to, is it okay if I share that preliminary thing that James developed with Laurel? Laurel Zemansky, the representative who lives in Harpers Ferry that works with Swan.
Yeah, that's James' call, his document.
That's sure, it's my document, I guess. It's fine with me. I was meant to be just a way to start the conversation. And I don't think any of it should be alarming to the Swan people unless they, as far as I understand the situation, I don't think they should be that concerned. But I think maybe there are things that they know that we haven't thought of yet.
The only thing I can think of is if it's something that throws it back on the municipality. I mean, I've got my shirt on today because West Virginia Supreme Court heard the case that we've been working on for a year now, which is the whole reason why this legislation went before this state in the first place.
Right.
But what I don't want to see happen is if it gives that current illegal counsel a way to stop what we'd like to see.
Well, if you share it, I'd appreciate it if we could. I'd love to hear her suggestions, and I'm sure the committee would too. So.
Right. Well, that would be the idea for sharing it instead of her hearing all this for the first time if she comes, attends our next Zoom meeting on that. She was interested in attending today, but then I found out that it was not going to be a real discussion on that. It was going to be just a preliminary, an overview thing.
Okay. Well, and if anybody else takes a look at that and has comments for us, the people who are not on that committee, we're happy to hear from you.
Okay.
Or anybody else on the board here. So.
Right. Okay, great. Thanks.
James, I think you had the next one as well, the solar energy.
Oh yeah, we also talked about, we had a presentation from the Planning Commission on a draft amendment to the zoning law that would allow solar energy facilities as a principal purpose for property here in the county. Basically it's amending the zoning law and to add some requirements around fencing and screening and decommissioning solar energy facilities. Solar energy facilities are sometimes known as solar farms. I'm not sure that's a pejorative term or not, but place of acreage with solar panels. We talked about that, and then we also learned that the zoning commission is going to have a public hearing on June 2nd on this proposal. And so that we have about a month or so to get our comments to them if we want to comment on this proposal. The reason they came to us and the reason it was kind of on our agenda is because the county's comprehensive plan encourages improvements to the county's public infrastructure to support economic growth. And it also explicitly talks about the importance of encouraging alternative energy sources in the county. And directs that as the county moves in that direction, that they coordinate with the JCDA on those topics. And that's how that got to our agenda. And that's where we are. So the committee's gonna give a little bit more thought to this and come back with some suggested comments by our meeting next month. Okay?
Great.
James? James, are they looking for comments on the zoning changes, or are they looking for more of a letter of support to say the JCDA, thinks this is a great idea? And if it is about like the JCDA writing a letter of support, is there a process this organization goes through to kind of evaluate it and get that done? If it's assuming that this is what they want and that this is a helpful thing.
I think those are the issues that I think the committee is going to talk about. We haven't had a chance to talk about exactly what the response might be, but definitely the amendment to the zoning law is really technical. It's like how many feet away from the boundary can you put your solar panels, and the need for fencing and the need for a plan for decommissioning. So I think I don't think we would comment on the technical things like that. It would be more about how to do this in a way that's supportive of our strategic mission. So, and
yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. That we don't really want to we don't want to give technical comments. We want to give kind of economic development. Yes, this is in the spirit of where we see growth or whatever, if that's the case. Right. So.
And to answer the second part, Michelle, there hasn't been any real formal process. It was sort of, in the past, just a collective thought during a meeting and some consensus on a position that we wanted to take. And then we usually had the executive director craft that and send it out on behalf of the group. All right, thanks, James. We're down to 7D, and Darren, my understanding was that you were interested in being on ag.
Sorry, Neil, I unmute. Yes, that's fine. That's fine. I told Patsy I'd like to audit the business development committee too, but we'll see how that goes.
All right, so I believe we can just, I can just appoint folks to committees, although we'd really like to have that be a group effort. So if you're willing to serve there, then we could go that route. But before we do, Bob, did you have names of people that you were going to ask from the community to add to ag? Because maybe we can take care of all of this in one action.
Okay, well, I was, number one was Dr. Peter Villa out of Shepherd University, head of the Sustainable Agricultural Group. And then Jane, the other two. Hello?
I had...
I saw Lynn was unmuted. I thought maybe she would say. Cassie Twig and Todd Coyle. Cassie is a member of the farming community, and she also used to be with the Ag Development Group in Loudoun County, although she's from Jefferson County. She used to work with the Extension Office. Todd Coyle, as y'all may know, is with the GAP Coalition Group, Bushel and Peck, Charlestown Farmers Market.
Okay.
Now, my understanding is these are non-voting positions.
Right. they would be members of the committee, but
It may be that they can vote on the committee, but just not, they're not members of the board.
right. All right, so if there are no objections there, Bob, if you wanted to make the motion, you could ask for Dara and your public members to be added to your committee, and we can see if we can get that approved.
Okay, I move that we add Dara and the 3 outside individuals to the Ag Committee.
All right,
I second it.
thanks, Christy. All right, and any comments there? All right, we're going to try it in reverse here. Anyone in opposition to those appointments? All right, hearing none, those appointments are approved. And Bob, your committee just got much larger, so good wishes on that.
Thank you so much.
All righty. All right, let's skip back up now because we'll hold the 7E for a little later, but let's go back to unfinished business. Lynn, you want to address the legal updates there?
Okay, on the first one, on the FOIA case, we don't have anything new to report there, or on the pilot one. On the West Virginia Environmental Quality Board appeal, that has been continued to June 10th and 11th. Will has talked to Mr. Tabb, and he was going to schedule a tour of the TEMA facility next week. After that tour, if he doesn't agree to terminate the case, the attorney will ask that it be dismissed at the June hearing because the permit has been completed and closed by the DEP. And that's all on those legal matters. That's the only updates we have.
Okay, any questions for Lynn on that?
Could I add something?
Sure.
Sorry, Matt. I don't know if we have to go into executive session to talk about this, and we don't. That's okay. I can wait. But I just know that at our executive committee meeting, Ms. Tabb talked about her organization's interest in getting through this case about the FOIA issue. But we just don't have more to say about that today. Is that where we are?
Yeah, I think probably not at this point.
Okay.
All right, so of the things left here, we need to go to executive session for 6B. And then when we come out, we can pick up 7E, 8, 9, and 10. So entertain a motion for executive session for item 6B to deal with our executive director candidate search and the updates we can provide to the full board.
I so move.
Okay, thanks, Sean.
Second.
Second.
All right, I heard Patsy there. All right, any objections to go into executive session? All right, so at 4:08, we're in executive session. We'll wait. We'll hang on just a second, but we're out at 4:22.
Okay.
All right, good discussion during executive. So I'd entertain a motion about our executive director search and the outcome that we had from last week's visit.
All right, Neil, I'll make the motion. I welcome any help. I move that we proceed with the hiring of the executive director and under the conditions that have been outlined in the letter of agreement that's been offered to them, and leave open the possibility that we may have to change the date at which that person will start work for us.
Okay, great.
Seconded.
Greg, was that you on a second?
It was.
All right, great, thanks. Any discussion there? All right, so let's do this one in the affirmative. So let's, this is a big decision for us, so let's go round table here, and we've got, we're looking for yeses, so I'll listen for the number of voices I hear.
Yes.
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 I got 9 there, so with me, I think that gets us there, so 9 or 10. And I might have missed 1 or 2, so, well, great. Thank you all. This has been a long process. You know, we're about 12 months removed from our permanent executive director. So Lynn and Jane are excited about this, but that approval of the motion will get us hopefully a new executive director permanently here sometime in the next couple of months, and a welcome addition to the team. So from this point, it's still not totally official because it has to work its way up through the county commission and back to us, but it lets us move to our next step and finalize it from our end for the moment. So thanks to everyone that's participated in that. And it's a, you know, this is probably, as I think we mentioned during all of the inner workings here, this is one of the biggest things we do. Probably the biggest thing that we do in many regards. So thanks to all those that have participated. I think we can look forward to a new chapter very shortly. All right, Lynn, we are down to your report, I believe.
Okay, I'll try to be quick. Just the update on lot 145. The quit claim deed has been prepared and sent to the state highway department for signature. We hope to get that back soon. And as soon as we get that back, we can go to closing on that lot. On lots 13 and 14, the agreement of sale has been signed by both parties. So we are looking for a closing date. It hasn't been determined yet. It may be a month or 2 before we can go to closing on it. Prospects, we have had some calls and inquiries the last week or so. They've increased. They sort of died off there for about a month, but they're starting to pick back up again. And I think that's all I have.
Great. Well, from the looks of the article I saw in the paper, you can tell Sandy Hamilton to toss any of her leftovers down your way, because apparently they're getting all kinds of calls there.
I was on a call with her earlier this week, and we told her that.
Okay, good. Very good. All right, any general member comments? Are we ready to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Thank you, ma'am. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have
Alrighty.
a discussion of slate of officers down there.
So we have a motion on the table, but why did I cross you off there? I got the 7E and there we went. So, all right, so we have a motion.
12 months.
We have a motion on the table, but we will table that for the moment so Patsy can get item 7E out.
Okay, very good. Well, the nominating committee, consisting of Amanda and Greg and myself, met last Friday, and we have a slate of officers to be nominated for these positions. Neil McLaughlin for Vice President, Sean Diego for Vice President, Chris has agreed to stay on as Treasurer, and previously, the treasurer and secretary were one and the same, and we felt that that was the a good way to go because Jane always takes the minutes. So that's the slate of officers recommended by the nominating committee.
Now you see why I tried to skip past. So what happens here is thanks for the committee's work and Patsy for chairing that. What happens here is that's the presentation by the nominating committee. Next month, we actually hold that as an agenda item for a vote. Also taking any nominations from the floor. So that's an agenda item for our June meeting. Any questions, comments, or thoughts for Patsy? All right, we circle back to Christie's motion and Sean's second for adjournment. Any discussion there? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, folks. 4:29. Boy, I tell you, we're scooting along here. These Zoom meetings were a lot quicker. Dara, you don't even have any idea what this was like beforehand. You and Jason, you know, you new guys, it was always dark when we got out of these before. So
Time's changed now.
Going to continue on Zoom?
yeah, well, we'll see. All right, thanks everybody. Good work.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you all.
All right.